In this video, we're going to talk about integration blocks and how you can utilize all kinds of integrations inside of your Mind Studio workflows. Let's go ahead and get started. Here we have a workflow, and this is just a blank workflow that we're going to talk about integration blocks with. You can add new integration blocks simply like any other block by clicking on the plus button and finding the integration block in the View All Blocks list. Now, there are some blocks that are native to Mind Studio, and these have some default colors, but the integration blocks will look slightly different and will reference a specific service that you can connect to. So example is this fetch YouTube captions block, which pulls the captions from any YouTube video given a URL. And you can do a couple of things with integration blocks. You can bring in data to use inside of your workflows, and then you can also send data out of the workflow to a specific service to perform an action. This fetch YouTube captions block is an example of bringing in data into our workflow, because what we're doing is grabbing the captions of that YouTube video in order to do something with it with AI. Let's take a look at an example that does not bring in data, but rather sends that data out. If I go ahead and add a new block, I can find something like the Create LinkedIn Post block. And this block will send data out to LinkedIn and make a post on our behalf. Now, you'll notice a couple of differences between these two blocks. So the configuration on the right-hand side is different, and that is because every block is going to require different configurations in order for you to use the block properly. So the Fetch YouTube Captions block requires a URL. We then create a variable for those captions. We can choose the format and the language, and that's all specific to this block in particular. And the Create LinkedIn Post block requires us to sign into our own LinkedIn account in order to make the post. So you'll notice that we have a space to ask for someone to sign into an account, or we can select our own account, which I've already signed into. For many of the blocks that require you to sign in, you'll have to create a connection on Mind Studio, and you can do that simply by clicking on this gearbox that will take you to your integrations, where you can add a connection to a specific service. So back inside of our workflow here, you'll also notice we can choose the visibility of this post, and in many cases you will have a space to include some content. So in this case, it's the content of the LinkedIn post. So to summarize, you can fetch data from different places to use in your workflow, and you can send that data out to various services after the workflow is complete. With all that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at a few different workflows, how they work, and how they specifically utilize these integration blocks in the workflow. So first off, we are going to expand on these two blocks here, the Fetch YouTube Captions and Create LinkedIn Post, because I have created a workflow that utilizes the YouTube captions, generates the LinkedIn post for us, and then posts a new post to LinkedIn. And you can see here that I'm collecting the URL via a user input. That URL is then passed through where we fetch the YouTube captions of this video, and then we have a generate text block that crafts a LinkedIn post for us utilizing the captions that we brought in via the YouTube video. Then we create the LinkedIn post, and we're simply using the variable that we created in the previous step as our content for this LinkedIn post. And what it ends up looking like is something like this, where we can include the link to a YouTube video. So here I have the URL, and when I paste the URL, you can see that it begins running, it fetches those YouTube captions, and then it will begin generating our LinkedIn post for us and automatically posting this new post to YouTube with some insights from the video that we just watched. So right now it is generating the post for us, and soon we'll be able to look on our post activity here and see the final post. So look, it finished running. Now we can look at our activity. I'll go ahead and refresh the page. And you can see here that I have a new post about this specific video. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this post because it is now live on my LinkedIn account. So I don't want it to appear there because this is just for the demo. But you can see how this is extremely useful for automating tasks like this, especially when you're browsing the internet and you find something interesting. You want to share it with people, but you don't exactly know what to say. You can have AI help you generate the posts that you wish you could have written. So let's move on to the next example. And in this example, we are utilizing several integration blocks from Google Docs and Google Sheets. And in particular, what we're doing is we are fetching the Google Doc of some financial documents. So here I have a sample report from this company, and here I have another sample financial report, and I'd like an easy way to compare the two via a spreadsheet. Well, I can automate all this using AI and these integration blocks. So let's take a look at the workflow. I am first fetching the Google Doc, and here I'm signed into my account. I have selected the document that I want to bring in, and I've saved that as doc1 variable. I'm doing the same thing with the other document. So that's our doc2 variable. And then we are using this generate text block, and I'm using some special tags here, and I'm nesting the tags so that I can separate the documents. And then it's going to extract the numbers and convert them to a CSV that can be used in a Google Doc to compare the two documents. I've given it a sample output, and then we are saving that sample output as a variable called CSV. Then we are connecting to our other integration block to Google Sheets. And you can see here that I've signed into my account. I'm naming the sheet here. So we have sample financial comparison. We get a sheet URL. And this is the content that we're going to include in the spreadsheet. In this case, it's just the CSV data that was generated by AI. And I just have a display content block so that we have easy access to the link to the specific sheet that we generated. Let's go ahead and we'll run this in the debugger. And when we run this in the debugger, you can see that it's fetched the documents relatively quickly. It's now pulling the information for a CSV format, and it's going to put those financials side by side inside of a spreadsheet for us so that we can perform analysis on it. And whether that might be our own analysis, that might be the analysis of another agent that we build, so we can fetch Google Sheet information as well via an integration block. So these concepts and utilities kind of build upon each other. And when it's all finished, we can see that it has created the Google Sheet. So if we go into our Google Sheets here, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page. And now I have this new financial comparison Google Sheet where it has listed all of the numbers for each of the categories that were listed in the document. So we can see things like total revenue, product sales, subscription revenue. Now it's not formatted in any way, but it is in there. If I go ahead and resize the columns, now we can see all of the various values in here. So, and we can see all of the numbers associated with those values. And we can compare and contrast the two companies side by side. So let's move on to our third example. And in this example, we are pulling from Google News using an integration block, and we are taking the news articles and creating an email digest that gets sent directly to our email inbox. And this is really good if you want just a recap of the news for the day. You can set this on a schedule. We're going to talk about schedules in a different video, but really useful tool that you can create using these integration blocks. And you can see I have a Google News block here, and I also have a send email block. So let's take a look. The first thing we're doing is searching Google News, and I've typed in the text of the keyword that I'd like to look for. In this case, we're looking at AI agents. I have an output variable that I have titled news, and then I have this generate text block that is analyzing all of the news, because what I'm doing is I've made sure to pull this news in a JSON format so that I can have it all in a structured way. And that's really important because I'm having the next block generate HTML for me that I'm going to display in the email so that it looks really nice when the email is sent to me. You can see here in my prompt that I'm bringing in all of that news right at the top, and then I'm asking it to create an email digest of the most interesting AI news stories, and then I give it some response formatting. So I'm asking it to format the response in HTML to style the email, and then I give give it a template of the example output. So if I go, I need to fix this here, example output, you'll notice I have the template. So an intro line, the top stories, and then I have a couple of story images. I'm telling it to include 5 stories and have a small outro. And then what we're doing is we are generating a subject line. So I'm pulling in the contents of that email, and then I'm just saying write a subject line for me so that I can utilize both of those inside of this send email block. So you can see here, this email block requires you to sign into an email address, and then it asks us to include a subject line and an actual email, and we can utilize Markdown or HTML in this send email block. And when we run this, let's go ahead and run this in the debugger. What's going to happen is just that. It's going to start the thread. It's going to pull all of that information from Google News. At that point, it's going to start generating our email for us. And then it's going to send that email directly to our inbox. So if I go ahead and open up my Gmail inbox while this is running, we will be able to see the email that is generated for us. We'll give this just a couple of minutes, and once it's ready to go, we should see it complete here. All right, so the email has finished generating. So let's quickly look at what happened in our workflow. So it searched for Google News. It ran the generate text block where it generated this HTML, and then it sent all of that information to generate a subject line, and then it used that integration block to send an email directly to our inbox. So let's go ahead and check our inbox here. We see we have this new AI Weekly Digest, and this was all generated by AI. It pulled all of this information, and you can see here that we have a thumbnail image, we have the title, we also have a link to the full story so that we can read the full story here. So there you have it. This is integration blocks. There are hundreds of integration blocks that you can choose from. They're all useful to pull in data from various services, to send data to different services and perform actions with the outputs of your AI workflows. And it's as simple as just filling out the configuration on the right-hand side or signing in to that particular service. So hopefully you learned something in this video. Don't forget to drop us a like if you enjoyed the video. If you have questions, leave a question in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more updates to Mind Studio. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.